be honored for his work not only in the Portland community, but also now spreading his good work into Lewiston and Auburn. Thank you, Craig.
Thank you, and what an honor to share the stage with all these people today. In 1994 or 5, I had a good idea. I was worried, like a lot of people probably here in this room, that the behavior of people, especially in rich countries like ours, were going to heat up the planet and kill us all. And I thought that was all just a big misunderstanding. And if we people just had an opportunity to experience how the planet takes care of us, we would do a better job of taking care of the planet. And what better way to experience how the planet takes care of us than growing food in community with other people? So this was my big idea. And the thing you need to know about me at that time is that not only did I have this good idea, but I was a really good guy. I really wanted to help people. And I had a bunch of fancy schooling, and I'd worked a bunch of jobs in schools and out, and I sort of at this point kind of knew how to move the levers to get things done. So my life brought me to a point where maybe I could try out this good idea. So I talked to a bunch of people at the City of Portland and at the Cooperative Extension and Portland Housing Authority and managers of this and directors of that. Check, and I got an opportunity to try this summer program with teenagers growing food. And so if I were to draw, I would say sheepishly now, kind of a schematic of what my worldview, and this is pre-ICL Pi class, it was sort of like this. There was a problem, and the problem was how other people were behaving, and then there was the solution, which was my great idea. And so all I needed to do was bring those things together, and things were going to be awesome, right? So it's around June 5th, I think, 2001, and I've gotten all my approvals, and I've got the 3 first teenagers that I've recruited, and we've got seeds and seedlings and hand tools, and we're heading out to these raised beds in Kennedy Park, which is about 8-10 blocks from here. And that was when I met Paula Weitz, who I now consider a very dear friend, but she doesn't like to be photographed. And I invited her to be here today, but she had a doctor's appointment. Unfortunately, she can't be here. Forgive my language, it was 14 years ago, so this may not be a direct quote, but I'm pretty sure this is what she said. She said to me, "Just what the fuck do you think you're doing? Who are you, and what are you doing in my community garden?" So again, I'm a good guy, right? This is just a misunderstanding. So I explained to her, all what we're going to do. And look at these teenagers. They're being transformed into environmental stewards right in front of our eyes. And isn't this awesome? And we're going to grow all this food, and it's going to feed the community. And Paula wasn't super impressed. Turns out, Paula at this point had lived in this neighborhood for about 33 years, and I'd been there about 33 minutes, and she had actually helped to get these gardens established and had been a sort of informal coordinator at getting people growing food. And I learned a really, really important lesson that day. I learned many important lessons that day, and Paula continues to be a teacher of mine, but some of them were, the people that you need to talk to if you want to make change in the world. Not everybody shows up on an organizational chart. Not everybody has a title. And nobody has the expertise to solve community problems like the people experiencing those problems themselves. So I try to carry that lesson with me when I go about my work with cultivating community. So Paula was an important teacher of mine. I want to run quickly through a couple of others that I want to bring together today. One is this guy, Wendell Berry, whom people may know. He's a sort of a rock star of the movement that I'm in, which is local foods, and he's a huge proponent of small-scale, integrated family farms where vegetables and animals are raised together. And he once looked out, and Amber alluded to our industrial food system earlier, and he looked out and he saw, these huge vegetable productions that they needed to import the fertility, and these huge animal operations where they have a huge waste problem. And he says, the genius of American farm experts is well demonstrated. They can take a solution and neatly divide it into two problems. This is another guy who I never had the opportunity to meet, but said one influential thing. A couple lifetimes ago, I used to do some work for Polaroid, and this is Edwin Land, the inventor of instant photography. And he used to be quoted around Kendall Square for his adage, any problem can be solved using the materials in the room. So, what do you take when you take a little bit of Paula White's and a little bit of Wendell Berry and a little bit of Edwin Land, and you get something that I think of now as sort of the cultivating community rule. If you take that inverse of American farm experts, and instead of taking solutions and dividing them into problems, and do the opposite, and you think that most problems can be solved using the materials in the room, we get to this place. Look for the solution that's disguised as a constellation of problems. It's probably already in the room, but you need to pay attention to everyone and everything that's in the room. And this is why I love what Ann Roosevelt said earlier, right? Don't forget to talk to Paula. So how does that play out in our world? How is cultivating community operated along these lines? I want to run through a couple of examples. Teenagers, okay? A lot of people think teenagers are a problem. I don't happen to be one. I've spent a lot of my professional life around them. I have two at home. I will concede that on any given day, they can live up to our worst stereotypes. But I also know that they are creative and that they are passionate and they care so much about fairness. And this is on us, they're almost never asked to take on serious work and challenges in our community. So that's an issue over here. The elderly, at least in our public discourse, are almost never talked about except as a problem or a challenge, right? The fact that Maine is the oldest state in the country is brought up not as an opportunity, but as a threat to our economic future. And it is certainly true, and again, none of us should be proud of this, that in Maine, seniors experience food insecurity and hunger at alarmingly high rates, and they're very vulnerable to social isolation. So, cultivating community rule. Instead of taking a solution and dividing into problems, how can we bring these things together? So, in our program, Youth Growers, we created something called Elder Share. And we have young people, one of whom is in the room, growing food for elders, delivering it. Not only is there a nutrition opportunity here, and not only do young people get to experience how their hard work is actually making a difference in other people's lives and see this, there's just this wonderful, wonderful kind of informal social interaction that happens at the doorstep. I like to say, if you've got a 78-year-old woman who was born on Munjoy Hill, who has an opportunity to confess how much she really hates kale, and then you've got this 17-year-old kid who was born in a refugee camp in Kenya, says, you know what, I really hate kale too. That's a wonderful win in my world, I think it would be great if they both said that they loved kale, but this is not fantasy, this is reality. And so but I think there's a wonderful success that happens there. We have a challenge around growing farm businesses in Maine right now. Now, there are a lot of things that are going great with agriculture in Maine, but it's a wonderful place to farm. It's a very welcoming community in terms of local foods, but to some degree, we've been a victim of our own success. Historically, the first place new farmers can find customers are in direct markets, farmers markets, CSAs, if you're familiar with that model. In Maine, those are really plateauing. There's tremendous pressure. If you're a beginning farmer, it's really hard to get into a farmer's market now because of their own success. Other kinds of markets, like institutional and wholesale customers, have, they present barriers in terms of infrastructure and scale for beginning farm operations to get into. So we do have a wonderful culture around beginning farming. I think we're going to solve this problem, but there's a challenge right now around markets. We also have a challenge around poverty and hunger in this state, which you may be aware of. Again, things that we really need to be focused on and working, but very high rates of hunger, very high rates of food insecurity, and about 1 in 5 Maine families use some kind of federal nutrition benefit like SNAP, which used to be called food stamps, or WIC, to put food on the table. Here in this city, in Portland, where my kids go to school, 52% of the kids are eligible for free and reduced price lunch every day. So one of the things we looked at in working with farmers and working with institutional buyers and working with other folks is how can we take these underserved populations and turn them into customers of these farmers that are looking for markets. And we think we've found ways to do that. One is actually, and this wasn't mentioned in Amber's resume, but one is very similar to a project she did in Skowhegan, where we have supported farmers markets so that they can be more welcoming of SNAP and WIC benefits. We've trained farmers and we've helped them enroll in the WIC program so they can accept those benefits. We've also established a network of farm stands that are particularly welcoming of these benefits in Portland and South Portland and Lewiston and Auburn. And we've helped by creating a food hub and helping farmers scale up. We've helped connect the big institutional customers with these beginning farm operations so that these fledgling operations can find the customers that they need. Okay, one more thing. Immigration. Again, it makes me sad how this shows up in our public discourse as a challenge. Because I know the gifts that all these new Americans who are coming to our community are bringing. But I will also say that many of the sort of service or technology jobs that we think we want to plug them into are not always a good fit. And this has already been mentioned, the fragility of our global food system and the fact that the way that we feed ourselves, which relies on petroleum and chemicals and bringing food from very far away, is really not going to be able to work for much longer. And there's a robust conversation going on today about how Maine can be more food self-reliant and how Maine can in fact feed more of New England. By now, you kind of can see where this is going. One of the things that we did at Cultivated Community, or that we are home to, is a program that brings new Americans, many of whom are arriving in our communities with these rich agricultural skills, and helping them learn how to grow in North America, find customers here, and build these farm-based businesses that are really going to be a pathway out of poverty. And P.S., in the meantime, they're also feeding my family and hopefully your family as well. So that's how we've taken this principle and put it into practice. So I want to leave you today with a couple thoughts. What are the problems that you're thinking about? We have solved a few. There are many more. The one that brought me to this work about global climate change, we have not tackled yet. Is it possible that the solution is already in the room? I would think so, as long as we remember to consider everybody and everything that is in that room. So please don't do what I did and forget to ask Paula. Thank you very much.